In every woman's life, there comes a moment when she gets tired of chasing what doesn't want to be caught. It is at that moment that she asks herself, what if true seduction lies not in what I do, but in what I stop doing? This video is for you, woman, who no longer wants to convince or conquer, who is ready to stop forcing connections and start evoking desire simply by your existence. True attraction is not begged for. It is born from the calmness, emotional wisdom, and serene control of a woman who knows who she is and what energy she radiates into the world. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that many consider cold, holds one of the most powerful secrets of feminine magnetism: self-possession as the highest form of power. As Seneca said, the greatest power is the ability to master oneself. And when that mastery becomes an emotional language, a calm gaze, the right words, something changes. Your presence begins to speak before you do. Carl Jung wrote in his book, Man and His Symbols, that the male psyche is naturally drawn to the female symbol, embodying mystery, intuition, and emotional strength. In other words, when a woman embodies presence, she becomes a symbol, and symbols are not explained. They are felt. Men don't just fall in love with a body. They fall in love with what they feel when a woman looks at them as if she sees something no one else does. This cannot be faked. It comes from your self-control, your intention, and your silent emotional play. That's why today we're going to talk about something deeper than seductive phrases. We're going to explore the art of evoking desire without pursuing it, touching a man's self-esteem without flattering him, being a gentle challenge that will remain in his mind long after you're gone. Because most women try to impress, but those who truly impress say little, but with intention. There is a huge difference between a woman who reacts and one who chooses how to react. This difference, though invisible, can be felt. And men, especially emotionally perceptive ones, notice it immediately. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control what happens outside of us, but we can decide how to interpret it, how to feel it, and how to act based on it. This is the foundation of a woman's emotional strength. It's not about suppressing what you feel. It's about purifying it, channeling it, and transforming it into a calm force of attraction. Epictetus put it clearly in The Art of Living. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And this phrase is far more valuable in the game of attraction than it seems. Imagine you're on a date. He says something ambiguous, something that might offend or confuse you. A reactive woman will make excuses, defend herself, or try to prove her point. But a stoic woman will pause for a second, look at him, smile ambiguously, and then respond with a short phrase showing that she hasn't budged an inch from her path. That pause is worth more than 1,000 words. It's a subtle sign that she's not dependent on what he says or does. She doesn't succumb to the moment. She owns it. And that mastery is felt even if nothing is said. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In seduction, this strength becomes something men cannot resist. A woman who doesn't waver, doesn't compete, doesn't beg, knows when to speak and when to let silence do its job. Because sometimes desire is born precisely from what is unsaid. Believe it or not, silence is a powerful tool of attraction, not a desperate attempt to fill every space. A stoic woman observes, and when she speaks, she does so with meaning, direction, intention, because she understands that not everything is uniform. Explaining. Some things are achieved by waiting. Jung also understood this through deep psychology. In Symbols of Transformation, he explained how the male unconscious is drawn to what it cannot fully possess, to what excites and awakens it, but does not give itself away immediately. It's a psychic dance between the desire to dominate and the fascination with what remains free. A woman who masters her emotions is not cold. She is dangerous because her power is not in shouting, but in a calm proposition. She is one of those women who leave emotional imprints not by what they say, but by the feelings they make a man feel. And that calm comes from self-observation and constant self-questioning. Am I acting out of necessity or out of choice, out of anxiety or out of certainty? A woman who lives in her center doesn't need to manipulate, doesn't need to chase. Her mere presence, her look, The rhythm of her speech already conveys something much more powerful than any cleavage or compliment. True femininity doesn't compete, doesn't try to please, doesn't try to fill a void. It maintains itself as an inner anchor. And this center is magnetic because it's rare, and rarity intrigues. Mystery doesn't lie in silence. It means knowing when not to say everything. When a woman applies the principles of Stoicism, something changes in her language as well. She no longer speaks to please. She speaks to reveal or provoke, but never to compensate for a lack. She doesn't go into excessive explanations. She doesn't justify her emotions. And when she allows herself to be vulnerable, she does so by choice, not out of emotional overflow. This is the difference between a woman who moves and a woman who influences. One reacts from a desire to be seen, the other from the awareness that her presence is already provoking. That's why on this path, emotional self-control is not suppression, it's alchemy. It's the ability to transform every emotion into something that serves your purpose. If you feel desire, you channel it through your gaze. If you feel anger, you transform it into powerful silence. If you feel tenderness, you express it elegantly without fear. And that, dear woman, is power. A power that doesn't scream, doesn't demand, doesn't chase, but waits and encourages others to come to you. Carl Jung wrote about the dynamics of the unconscious. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. And what if seduction is not just about the other person, but about you? How deeply can you know yourself in your own provocation? Men feel it when they're with you. Maybe they can't explain it, but they feel it. And they're drawn not only to you, but to what they feel around you, confused, excited, wanting more. Because a woman who doesn't react automatically, who isn't confused by any stimulus, becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability seduces. There is something more seductive than a perfect body, a word spoken at the right moment, with the right intention and the right tone. An emotional language that doesn't need to scream to impress is the silent art of attracting attention. A woman who masters subtlety doesn't seek approval. She speaks from her center, from her confidence. She says just right, and what she doesn't say matters even more. Subtext is what lies behind the words. It's the vibration you transmit when you speak. And if there's one quality that Stoicism trains particularly well, it's the emotional clarity behind every action. Seneca wrote, "The greatest freedom is to be master of oneself." And when a woman speaks with emotional intent, without anxiety or need, she's actually saying, "I'm free. I don't need to trap you. I'm just letting you see me." Carl Jung, in The Psychology of Transference, said that in every human interaction, unconscious elements are projected. In other words, you're not just speaking, you're evoking inner states in the other person. And if you know how to use this with elegance, you can make a man feel a strong attraction, even if he doesn't understand why. A woman who masters the language of her emotions doesn't reveal herself impulsively, doesn't go into excessive explanations. She doesn't need to share everything she feels to be understood. Because when she looks, when she's silent, when she slowly utters a phrase full of subtext, something inside him awakens. And that's what he doesn't forget. What makes a woman irresistible is not what she says, but the feelings she makes a man feel with her words. Imagine you're standing in front of him. He expects you to act like most, laugh too much, try to please, follow a script, but you don't. You speak with pauses, with a fixed gaze, a quiet voice, and when you say something, you do it as if it's a secret that only he has the right to hear. This is emotional seduction, and Stoicism is the path that teaches you not to speak out of anxiety, not to be silent out of discomfort, not to seek approval to avoid rejection. A Stoic woman speaks when she wants to communicate, not when she needs to fill the silence. And that detail changes everything. Jung, in his book, Psychological Types, wrote that each person radiates psychic energy that affects the emotional field of others. And women with focused energy and sober language awaken something deep in men: admiration, desire, and above all, curiosity. Because a woman who doesn't reveal everything about herself, who responds with well-thought-out ambiguity, becomes a mystery, and mystery is the food of desire. Now pay attention. Mystery is not coldness. It's not about acting distant or indifferent. It's about playing with what's said, about speaking emotionally without making it obvious, about giving him an emotion he can't define, and that's why he wants to feel it again. Emotional language consists of three key elements: a soft, confident, and slow tone, a fixed gaze with a hint of ambiguity, and the intention not to please, but to awaken something within him. When you talk to a man, don't explain everything to him. Don't give him the map, give him signs. Short phrases with emotional weight that leave doors open, because what is given completely is no longer desired. Be like a poem that cannot be understood immediately, but which is felt from the first line. A single phrase spoken in a quiet voice after a pause can have more impact than a whole speech, especially if it's filled with intention and subtext. For example, instead of saying, "I like you very much," you can simply look at him and say, "There's something about you that I find hard to ignore." This phrase doesn't flatter him directly, but it makes him think. It opens up an inner question, and it's impossible to resist. Most women try to win favor by talking more, showing more, giving more. But what's truly seductive is to give less, but with more intention. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life. The same applies to your words. The emotionality of your phrases determines the kind of man you will attract." Speak as if every word carries a carefully chosen emotion, not to convince him of anything, but to make him feel something he cannot explain. And if there's one thing men never forget, it's what they felt around you. Not because of what you did, but because of what you provoked with your language, your energy, your gaze. A woman who masters the language of emotions will never have to ask, "Do you like me?" She knows it, and she confirms it with silence, short phrases, long pauses in which desire quietly builds. And if the moment seems right, you can also use soft statements with ambiguous emotional intent. Something like, "I don't know what it is about you, but my body knows." This phrase needs no explanation. The image remains, as does the emotion. Jung, in his book, Ego and the Unconscious, explains that the most powerful experiences are not immediately conscious. They transform us from within. And this is what happens when a woman speaks from her emotional center. She doesn't explain herself. She continues to vibrate within him. Because true power is not in saying everything. It's in knowing when to say it, how to say it, and above all, when to say nothing. This is the alchemy of subtext. This is the elegance of emotional mastery. And this dear woman is the embodiment of something unforgettable. There are phrases that are not just words. They are emotional triggers that open doors to the male unconscious. If spoken by a woman who is self-possessed and has strategically subtle intentions, they can leave a lasting imprint on a man's emotional memory. These phrases are not designed to convince or impress. They are comparable to someone throwing a stone into a lake, knowing that the ripples will eventually reach the depths. They don't expect an immediate reaction. They aim to leave a mark that will become irresistible over time. The first phrase, "Darling, there's something about you that confuses me. I don't even know what it is." This is an admission that seems vulnerable, but in reality it's full of power. Because you're actually saying that he has an effect on you that even you can't fully understand, this makes him attractive. In the male unconscious, the desire to feel special is activated, to be the only one capable of shaking the balance of a woman who is usually firm, balanced, and serene. This emotional ambiguity attracts him because it's not a declaration of love or a direct compliment. It's an open mystery. This phrase should not be uttered casually. It only works if spoken slowly, like a thought that unintentionally slips out. After shared silence, after a gaze has lingered a few seconds longer than expected. You don't say it in a text message or at the beginning of a relationship. You say it when emotional tension is already present, when you know there's a spark between you. Carl Jung wrote in Ego and the Unconscious that every meaningful encounter is based on projection. This phrase is exactly that, a projection of power onto him. You give him something without giving everything, and that feeling of not being in complete control is addictive. The second phrase, "You have a way of distracting me, and you don't even realize it." This phrase carries something almost playful. It's not flattery, it's not surrender, it's a way of showing him his power without making him feel completely in control. You let him know that he affects you, that he awakens something in you, but you also hint that he doesn't even realize it. You make him feel powerful, but you also challenge him. You awaken his desire to know more, to prove that he can affect you even more if he wants to. The tone here is crucial. It shouldn't sound rehearsed or calculated. It should come in a moment of laughter, playfulness, emotional intimacy, said with a slight smile like someone throwing a gentle provocation. This phrase achieves something rare. It emotionally imbalances him because you give something and take it away at the same time. In Symbols of Transformation, Jung wrote that what does not become conscious appears as fate, and that's what this phrase does. You bring to the surface what he wasn't aware of, and once he knows, he can't stop thinking about it. It's not that you lose focus, it's that now he needs to confirm it. Don't say it in a message. Don't use it to flatter him if you're not emotionally centered. This phrase only works if you know you're playing from your center, not from a need to attract attention. The third phrase, if I kissed you right now, I know you wouldn't be able to resist. You're not asking for a kiss. You're not even saying you will kiss him. You're making a statement. You're declaring an inner certainty. You're taking emotional control of the moment. And you're making him imagine it. You're making him feel it, but you're not moving. This phrase must be said with presence, with a steady gaze, a low voice after a conversation full of emotional depth, at night, full of tension. Don't say it if you're not anchored in yourself. Don't say it if you can't hold the silence that comes after it, because that silence is what creates the real impact. It should not be said as a joke. It's not a pickup line. It's a mix of confidence and playfulness, restrained desire and emotional mastery. Because what this phrase does is not provoke action. It provokes an image. And as Jung explained in Man and His Symbols, the emotion associated with an image is stronger than 1,000 rational words. When you say this to a man, you create a scene in his mind. And that scene comes back to him when he's alone, when he remembers, when he looks for you, not knowing why. These phrases work because they don't give everything away, because they don't explain, because they are emotionally ambiguous. And ambiguity, what cannot be clearly defined, activates the deepest layers of male desire. What these phrases have in common is not just their structure, it's the energy behind them. If you use them from insecurity, from a need to please, they lose all their power. But if you use them from your center, knowing that you don't need anyone, and you choose to evoke emotions, then they become art. A woman can learn phrases. Anyone can say them. But only a woman with emotional presence can make these phrases resonate within him for days, weeks, even years. Because what truly remains in memory is not the phrase itself, but the feeling it left behind. And that feeling is built on details: the steady gaze, the pause before speaking, the deep breath after saying something, the precise tone that leaves him uncertain whether it was a provocation, an admission, or a dream. Jung spoke of feminine archetypes as inner forces that operate beyond conscious thought. And a woman who is connected to her emotional power, to her calm, to her mastery of the moment embodies these archetypes. She becomes more than a woman. She becomes a symbol. And symbols, as he said, are not understood. They are felt. And what is deeply felt is pursued. So it's not just about the phrases. It's about you, the woman who utters them, your tone, your center, your silent strength. It's about no longer being in the energy of chasing, but in the energy of provoking, allowing words to be conduits of your magnetism, not your lack. These phrases are not labels. They are tools, but you are the fire that ignites them. And when you learn to speak intentionally from your calm, from your gaze, you stop being just another woman. You become an emotional experience. And men don't forget experiences. They chase what they can't explain. They desire what makes them feel unique, challenged, and emotionally moved. That's the key. It's not about what you say, it's about where you say it from. And that, dear one, makes you unforgettable. A woman can possess presence, intelligence, even emotional beauty, but if she acts from the wrong place, the magic crumbles. Attraction isn't just about what you do, it's about the energy behind what you do. And this is where many women unconsciously sabotage their own power. One of the most common mistakes is to act out of lack, out of an urgency to be liked, to be chosen, to feel validated. This energy is palpable. It's not spoken, but it's transmitted. A gesture that seems too eager, a message sent without pause, a phrase said just to validate something. And when he feels that need, his desire begins to wane. Because men don't desire what chases them. They desire what emotionally challenges them, what touches them without asking. Emotional anxiety, however subtle, contaminates the vibration, and desire needs space to grow. Another common mistake is to use emotionally powerful phrases without understanding timing, without caring about tone, or without maintaining the emotional energy these phrases demand. Saying, "There's something about you that confuses me," in a text message with emojis, or as a joke, is like casting poetry into the void. It loses all its impact. What seduces isn't the phrase itself, but the moment, the pause, the tension around it. Using these phrases without intention or emotional mastery not only robs them of meaning, it turns them into cliches, into copied lines. And a sensitive man senses the difference between a woman who embodies what she says and one who simply repeats it, hoping for a result. It's also a mistake to constantly seek attention, trying to keep his interest by replying quickly, sending indirect messages all the time, constantly checking for his interest. This creates emotional fatigue. Male desire needs space, mystery, and emotional pause where he can miss you, imagine you, and reconstruct your energy in his mind. If you are too present, too available, too obvious, he has no room to move. And if he doesn't move emotionally towards you, there's no tension. And without tension, there's no desire. Another fatal mistake is confusing authenticity with emotional overflow. Showing vulnerability doesn't mean telling everything. It doesn't mean crying on the first date. It doesn't mean talking about your traumas to create a bond. It means sharing by choice, not from a wound. A man may feel compassion for an emotionally overwhelmed woman, but not desire. Attraction doesn't arise from emotional chaos. It arises from contrast. A woman who feels deeply but chooses when, how, and how much to show, that is power. That is emotional magnetism. A woman who reveals herself with awareness elicits respect and desire. One who overflows without a filter only creates confusion. And finally, one of the most subtle but most destructive mistakes, talking too much, filling every silence, explaining what you feel, justifying every emotion. Silence is not your enemy. It is your ally. It is in silence that tension is created. Your calmness is revealed, and your presence speaks louder than any word. Talking without pause, rhythm, or emotional direction is like music without a tempo. It's tiring, it's draining, and it leaves him no room to hear the most important thing, how he feels when he's with you. That's why every mistake made out of anxiety, out of need, out of impulsivity, undermines your ability to create authentic desire. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be centered, live in your presence, use your words consciously, and always remember that a man truly desires a woman who knows how to make him feel what he cannot explain. There's a kind of power that needs no words, no force, no demands. It's the power of a woman who has stopped trying to please and has started living fully within herself, who no longer strives to be chosen because she has chosen herself, who doesn't chase love because she has become an experience of self-love so profound that the authentic is drawn to her and the superficial fades away. Stoicism is not coldness, it is contained fire. It is knowing that you have emotions, desires, impulses, but that you guide them. They don't guide you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Perfect tranquility is the right ordering of the mind in your own inner kingdom." And when a woman orders her inner world, the outer world begins to respond differently. She no longer chases anyone. She is the one who inspires others to move. Carl Jung said in The Dynamics of the Unconscious that the process of individuation, the path to becoming who you truly are, requires the integration of shadows, emotions, and impulses without denying them. A woman who masters her emotional game does so not through a mask, but through integration. She doesn't reject her desire. She transforms it into a gaze, She doesn't suppress her emotions. She transforms them into a pause. She doesn't act out of fear. She acts from her center. Such a woman doesn't need strategies. She is the strategy. Her way of being present, of speaking little but with purpose. Her ability to be silent without losing presence. Her emotional language, full of subtext, pauses, and an inner rhythm, creates a magnetic field that cannot be explained, only felt. And this is the greatest secret of deep attraction. It's not what you show, it's what you make someone feel. Men don't fall in love with a woman because she tries. They fall in love because when they are with her, they feel different, more alive, more desired, more motivated to find out what lies beyond her calm. So every time you wonder what to say, how to act, what strategy to use, remember this. There are no magic phrases if there isn't a magical woman behind them, and a magical woman is not born by chance. She is born from inner work, from the daily decision not to react, not to dramatize, not to chase what doesn't align with her value. She knows that what is meant for her will come because her energy calls it without asking, because she has cultivated a presence so strong, so refined, so authentic, that only what is true dares to remain. True seduction is not theatrical. It is stoic. It is emotionally intelligent. It is intentional and, above all, selective. It is the woman who does not impress with intensity, but leaves a mark with her calmness. Not the one who dazzles, but the one who transforms. Not the one who needs to be chased, but the one whose mere presence leaves behind a question that no one can stop trying to answer.